Hello everyone, AmyR here from Prairie Paper and Ink with another video for the Picket Fence Studios YouTube channel. I'm going to use one of the new stamp sets and coordinating dies that was just released in their January 2025 release. I'll have a link to the release in the description box below the video. You can check that out because there is all sorts of fun goodies in this release. I'm going to combine it with a couple previously released die sets and some paper splatter watercolor. We're going to do some Olo marker coloring, all sorts of fun things. As always, I will have links to everything I used as well in the description box below the video, so you can check that out if you are interested. And let's get into making this card. Okay, so this is the Friendly Fred the Gnome stamp set. I don't know why. I love him. He's so cute. And he is one of those images, and Picket Fence has many like this, that even for me, I'm in card making for decades and do tons of coloring and everything else, that when you first look at it, it's like, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. A lot of work to color. There's a lot of detail. Honestly, trust me, it's not. It's really not. You just pick a spot and go. And I've talked about this in some of my videos, that images that have a lot of detail like this are actually in a lot of ways easier to color because the detail's there. It's just in the stamp. So you just got to add a bit of color. So I started with Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, and I stamped the image with black ink, like an alcohol marker friendly ink. And then I'm using my Olo markers. Any alcohol markers will work. This first little bit here is real time, so I haven't sped it up yet in editing, just because I don't move as quickly as the magic of video editing makes me look. This is the speed at which I color, especially when I'm just starting an image. I go a little slower till I'm like, okay, where do I want to place this? And like I had said, with images like this that are very detailed, just pick an area and just focus on that, and then move on to the next. Now, since this is a humanoid, I don't know what else to call them, type image, for me, I always do like skin and hair first. I don't know why. It's just a habit after all these years. So that's what I did. Started with his skin, and then I'm doing his mustache and beard, and then we'll move on from there. And another note, if you haven't seen my other videos using Olo markers, I have not connected mine. These are half markers. They come with connectors. You connect two together, etc. I am refusing to do that because I like having all the colors where I can see them. My OCD will not let me have like two different colors on one marker. It drives me bonkers. So this works for me, and it doesn't bother my hands, but there are connectors. You can connect them, but I'm holding out, and I heard there's a delay. I heard that Olo is coming out with fine tips, like little bullet nibs, because that's what I'm waiting on. Because then I will get a set, and then I'll connect them, and then I'll have one end with this fabulous brush end, and the other end with the fine, like little bullet end. That's when I will have a properly looking marker. But for now, I'm doing this, and it just works. So, yeah, I was just working my way, coloring, and and following the cues of the actual image. So where there's a lot of line detail, hints at shading and shadows, that's where I'll put my darker colors. As per usual, I don't often follow light sources. I should more often, but I just don't. I just don't. So anyway, I did reds for all of these little mushroom bits, just give it that little pop of red. And the greenery, honestly, I just slap the green on. It's all very fine and finicky, so I was just kind of just scribbling, splotching the colors. Not a whole lot of blending to do on the greenery. It just worked. And then I'll add a little bit of brown to that, just to tone things down even more. Just little bits of brown for his little shoes, and then adding little bits of brown to the ground and to some of the greenery. And then for this image, I decided to use just a white pencil, like a white Prismacolor pencil. Any white pencil will probably work, to fill in all the spots on the mushroom and to add highlights, versus normally I use a white Jelly Roll pen for my highlights, but And people have been asking me, it's like, why do you choose one over the other? It honestly just depends on my mood. And with this, I just didn't want the harshness of the white Jelly Roll pen. The pencil is much softer. And yeah, I just like the look of it. So I used it to add the highlights. I filled in the little spots on the mushrooms with it. And that was it. So once it was all colored in, I used the coordinating wafer die to die cut this image. So got the die all lined up and then ran that through my die cut machine. And then I did some more die cutting using the Beyond Basics Vintage Rectangles and Cover Plates dies. This is a huge die set. I can't remember if I've shown it before yet on a published video. I got a bunch of footage I still need to edit. I've used it before. I just don't know if I put it in a public video yet, but it's a big die set. There are 3 dies that imprint like a pattern. So I'm using the brick one. And then there's several dies that do like a decal edge in different sizes. And then there's that stone one. So it will imprint that stone pattern. And then there's that one that cuts rectangular strips, kind of like windows. So for the brick one, I just ran it through with another piece of the Neenah Desert Storm cardstock. No extra nothing added to it. And it just cut that rectangle and imprinted that brick pattern, which I don't know what it is about like brick and stone patterns. I love them. To me, they're just like a neutral. They just work with everything. So I took this piece and I used Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink and a bit of peeled paint Distress Oxide ink. Added some with some Picket Fence blending brushes, and then also went just direct to cardstock with those ink pads just to enhance that brick pattern. And because oxide inks are very water reactive, I splattered a bit of water on here as well and lifted it up with a paper towel just to get that, sort of distressed, splotchy look. And then, of course, we're going to add more splatter because that's just what we do. So after I did that, I had also die cut a layer with one of the decal edge rectangles from that same die set. I used the largest one. So this one is about A2 size, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And on this one, this was just cardstock from my stash, kind of a neutral cardstock. And I just used that same Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink and just blended that around the edges because that's all you're going to see of this one is just the very edge because everything's going to layer on top of it. So I just added that bit of the Vintage Photo and then also like kind of ran the brush just along the very, very edge of this just to enhance it a little bit, just like so. And then as an additional layer, I also pulled out the Beyond Basics A2 stamp cover plate with Postmark dies. This is another big die set. There's a ton of dies in it, but I used just this big, like kind of postage stamp sort of die because it's just going to give a fun border around this brick pattern, as you can see. So I'm just I die cut it from red cardstock, and then I adhered those 2 layers together with some craft tacky glue. And then off camera, aka I forgot to film, but I just added a bit of baker's twine, just wrapped it around, tied it in a bow. Nothing crazy. Now for splatter. So the first bit of splatter, we're going to use the Paper Splatter watercolor in Liquid Pecan Tart Brown. It's a very dark brown and you can't really see it on camera, but there's a shimmer to it as well. It's quite pretty. Don't eat it, but it's accurate, like pecan tart. I was like, it sounds delicious and looks delicious, but don't eat it. Anyway, I put that onto a palette and splattered that heavily onto my background with my fan brush, and then decided to splatter it also around the edges of this. This will be kind of the main layer of the card front. And then what was left on my palette, I added to the main image, my little gnome friend, just lightly. Mostly keeping it towards like kind of the bottoms and the edges. I don't want to, I don't want to cover all that coloring with splatter, but just a little bit. So I used all that up, cleaned up my brush, set that aside. All this splatter is now dry. And I'm going to adhere these 2 layers together with some Big Mama foam tape from Simon Says Stamp. It creates a little bit of dimension, but it's not super bulky. So I adhered those 2 layers together. And then to adhere my gnome, I'm also using that same foam tape just to pop it up over this baker's twine. And again, just build that little bit of dimension. And then once I've got all of this adhered together, I'm going to add a bit more splatter. So I'm going to use the Picket Fence Opaque White splatter. So I'm going to put that onto my palette. My brush I hadn't cleaned out very well, but that's okay. This is all kind of more, a little more vintage looking. Not something I do very often, but this was a lot of fun. And he's just so ridiculously cute. So added that. Again, kind of kept it mostly towards like the background, not as much on the main image. But it still lands kind of whatever. That's the joy of Splatter. It does its own thing. So for the sentiment, that's from the same little Fred the Gnome set. And I just stamped it onto that remaining piece that I'd stamped the main image on and used the coordinating wave die to die cut it. And then for my card base is also Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, and it's a top folding A2 card, so 4¼ by 5½ inches. And I'm going to stamp this main image with Altenew's Rocky Shores Fresh Dye ink. And I'm going to ink this up and stamp it a couple times because I wanted to make sure I got all that detail because he's just fabulous. And this will soften a bit, so it looks a lot darker, but you'll see at the end when I show the inside of the card, it's much lighter once it's fully dry. And with things like this, when I stamp images like this that take up like the inside of the card, very detailed, I will write right on top of it. I don't care. It's just there as like extra embellishment, just 'cause. But I'll write over it. It is what it is. And then the sentiment is from that same set. And I stamp that with black ink. So then the inside of the card is now complete. And then I'm going to adhere the card front to the card base with craft tacky glue. And then as my final embellishment, I'm using one of my favorites. This is the Picket Fence Studios Neutral Hearts embellishment mix. I've used this in a bunch of videos. It's got little clay hearts in white, brown, and black. And my original plan was to just use the clay hearts. But as I was pulling them out, there's like clear confetti, or iridescent confetti. And it fell on the card, and I was like, oh, I like how that looks. Because I wasn't going to add any extra, sparkle. But I liked it. So I was like, no, I'm gonna adhere those down. So, and then I added a few more. So I got them all, where I wanted them. And then for the little confetti pieces, I just picked them up with my tweezers and adhered them with glue. The glue will dry clear. So it looks white right now, but it'll dry clear. So these will be just little bits of shimmer on the card. And you can't go wrong with shimmer, in my opinion. So I adhered the little clay hearts and the confetti with craft tacky glue. So using the reverse tweezers for the confetti and then my embellishment wand for the hearts. Got those adhered into place. Let the glue dry. And then as you can see, the glue dries clear. So it's just little hints of shimmer, little reflective iridescence. And then my cute little Fred the Gnome. Again, I don't know what it is about him, but I just think he's cute. So, as always, I will have links to all the things in the description box below the video, so if you want to expand that and check it out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me and for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton. I very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.